Adele Sleuzis. I'm the visual arts curator here at the Mill. Today we're having a chat with Tasha Cameron and Taylor Oriana Julie Winston about their exhibition One. It's so much about connection and the conversation between you guys. Do you want to let me know a little bit about where the idea started and how you've developed that to where it is today?
Well, it all began with, I guess, an embryonic idea where we'd been having some discussions every time we met about similar interests, and then with this proposal for an art exhibition, we started to have conversations about what we have in common and the interests that we have. Which then led to this concept of us coming up with two different names that both contain the word one, because we could see for us what was really important was that interconnectivity between people, between the land, between our past, and so it just seemed right to name the work One.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting the way that you've drawn out these ideas of connection through the work, and some of the things that you've done are talking about like mycelium and the way that moves through underground. Also, using your body for performance. So maybe you can talk a little bit about those themes and how you've drawn out these ideas.
Mycelium is basically the root system, I guess is a good analogy, of the mushroom, the fungus, which goes below the surface, and the organisms can go for kilometres and kilometres along underneath the ground, and we don't see most of that. But they pop up as mushrooms, and when they pop up as mushrooms, the spores get released into the atmosphere and we breathe them in. So they become part of us and we become part of them, which led me to this speculative idea that, maybe because they communicate using pheromones and things like that, that they are somehow supporting us to communicate non-verbally.
Yeah, I guess, extending on that, because I felt like you really brought, the ideas and concepts of mycelium into this. That it really helped us to define and look at the kind of unspoken connections that are present, the unspoken or unseen and hidden collaborations that exist within the everyday on kind of, multi-dimensional plane as well. And
you've explored that, Taylor, in the video that you've made as well, that connection to being part of a tree, slowly revealing yourself within the tree.
Yeah.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about the process of making that video and the inspiration for it.
Okay, so I believe the process behind that video was, really kind of looking at if we could kind of reimagine how we see nature, how we see ourselves in relation to the natural world, because often there's this kind of divide between human and nature, seeing it as separate, when ultimately, we're all a part of one world or one kind of, ecosystem. Okay, so after reading, The Hidden Life of Trees and, reimagining the body in relation to the natural world, I felt that video and that process was really just looking at that kind of stripping back, and it's quite a visceral and almost painful video to watch, and it kind of makes me think of like an anaesthetised existence that we might have, and that ultimately the kind of stripping back of the natural world is extremely detrimental to our own well-being, and just looking at those interrelationships and interdependent relationships that we have with the natural world, with each other, just everything.
Yeah. And process has been such an important part of building the other parts of the exhibition as well, and intertwining natural materials into the work as well. So, Tasha, can you speak a little bit about the processes that you developed to make the sort of beautiful canopy that we have, but also the cloud-like formations that sit in the window of the exhibition space?
Well, that all began with a little, let's call it an epiphany I had probably back in late December, early January, when I was drawing trees in a park, and all of a sudden I saw the shadows of leaves dancing upon the trunks, which then became the first idea, which became part of the video work here. And that epiphany led to this idea that, okay, speaking to what you were just saying about us being part of the natural environment, well, these leaves, when they were dancing on the trees, kind of looked like us moving about in nature, and I imagine them being huge. And at that moment, I realised that everything else that I created needed to come from our environment.
So Taylor, you brought in the gold leaf that got added to the beeswax and gave this beautiful accent, and that's something that only would have happened with you guys working together in the space to build that. And when you brought in the cloud-like material, it was being in here and having the gold thread that inspired the idea to hang it in the window and create this beautiful, like streaming, connective, flowing sculpture.
I feel that the collaborative process, like within the gallery space, was. I think that's really when everything really started to come together. A part of that collaborative period, we were kind of investigating, having a lot of conversations, but not being within that same space. So kind of creating alongside of each other in separate spaces. So then we got to be in here within the gallery and kind of share what we've been doing, and then looking how these things interconnect, how we can use them together, and essentially how do we negotiate the space as well with what we have. So there was a really big refining process.
I think a lot of the collaboration really probably took place prior to coming into the gallery. Obviously when we're here also, but a lot of this work being about, being one, was finding and understanding how we connect, and I guess deepening our relationship so that when we reached this space, it felt, like an easy transition because we'd already had those conversations. But then all of a sudden we're here with this material and it's like, okay.
And the thing I really loved about that name is that one can actually exist in multiples. So it's like one body, one atom, one human race. And then looking at how the body is, made up of many different organic material and, and bacteria and organisms. And I feel that that's quite reflected within these within the different materiality of the works.
For me, one of the most beautiful moments was early on when we'd just begun the install and only the weaves were upon the ceiling. A couple of people arrived, and I think the video was also going, and I watched them being mesmerised by it, and I felt that they were truly present with the work. And so for me, my hope is that when people find themselves in this space, because of the natural elements contained within it, symbiotically with the human elements, the body and the eyes, they experience that connection and truly feel that oneness that we have felt along the way on the rocks or within this space, to give them that same sense of meditative calm, not chaotic anymore, knowing that we are in balance with our environment and this space can provide that to them.